Pulisic dentro, Rafa. Gol! Ebram! Gol! È l'azione più bella del mondo! È l'azione più bella!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Oli Fisher, joined once again by Anthony Torgrud.
I am here again.
I don't know why I split your surname in two there.
Either, but hey, two syllables.
Yeah, it is. No, Maddie this week. The guy's away. Where is he working? Something like that. That's a proper job.
Honestly, I thought he was supposed to be here, but then you messaged me individually, so I assumed he had said something, and I just didn't want to go back and check. So,
we should.
if you're listening, Maddie, and you're wondering when we're recording, I apologize.
Now is the answer. Yeah, I was going to say we should make something up. Like, unfortunately, we've had our differences and we've had to part ways, but nobody would believe
he might be out of town. He posted a few pictures of like him and his family and a ton of snow. And like I've been to his house, it didn't look like his house was covered in snow. I feel like he would have said, "Oh, we got hit with 2 feet of snow." Like
he might be currently buried in snow.
That's true. Could be caved in. No internet.
Could be caved in. Before we dive into Milan getting caved in by Feyenoord last week, I've got to read the list of Substack founding members, and I'm going to go in reverse, which I like to do every now and again. Medi K, Ken, Roberto Racinos, Marco Villela. Fuck, every time that's going to get me in it, because I've corrected it on here, but I'm now in the habit of reading them how I used to do them. But anyway, it's like when I used to say MJ when he wasn't part of the list, but he's back now, so we can continue on to Tarek, JT Physio, Mike Schulz, Heavenly 13, Derek Favretto, Merlin Finker. See, I'm getting that one right. Nasser, Carlo Fassi, Rajat, Raul Escobar, Luke Villano, Mats, MJ, Kemin, Joey Gawler, Moritz Pullman, Tito Mack, and Des Windsor McGlynn. Thank you for all of the support that you are showing us as Substack founding members over on the Substack. And a reminder, you can try 1 week for free to see if you like it. The most recent upload we had on there was the pub chat with Lorenzo and Stefano, where they debated Rafael Leao, his story as a Milan player to this point, where he is in terms of his current standing. You know, his starting spot no longer seems to be guaranteed. We're going to come on to things like that in this episode, and how the future might look for him as well, end of the season and beyond. The bonus pod that me and you did on Friday was updated prediction. Oh, no, it was Thursday, sorry. Updated 2024-25 predictions after the winter transfer window. Obviously, quite a few things have changed. So we decided to go back through what we said at the start of the season, and amend them, I should say, to, you know, where we're going to finish in the league, cup run, Champions League, all that kind of thing, and some hot takes in there too. Isaac's bonus article was about ticket prices. Now, I'm still thinking that one day we'll sit down and do a ticket price debate, maybe. But Isaac's done a fantastic article on this. Kind of compares where Milan's ticket pricing strategy has gone, looks at the derby in particular, which has taken a huge hike recently in terms of what they're charging for different sectors, and also takes a look at the example of Bayern Munich, as obviously the biggest club in the Bundesliga, but what they've done to make sure that they strike a balance between fans being satisfied and also running, you know, as they are a huge revenue-making corporation, if you like, as well as a football club. The newsletter, No Time to Whine, was a look back at the first leg against Feyenoord, which we're going to talk about in more detail in a sec. And there was the news bulletin as part of that with the main stories from throughout the week. And yeah, that's all on Substack in the past week. Go check it out, and you can try a week for free.
Okay.
These are the champions. Somebody said in the comments last week, what happened to the Champions League clip, if you like, because it was like we literally cropped the intro for the Champions League thing, and somebody replied and said, presume it's copyright. It's not actually that. It became sort of more and more difficult to put it in, and also the clip that we had kind of cut off just before the end, so I was never fully happy with how it was.
Yeah. So the reason it was short, I mean, you already know this, but for the other people, was for copyright. On YouTube, you're allowed, I think it's 3 or 4 seconds of copyrighted material before it's flagged. So we cut it to fit perfectly in there. But now that we don't actually go in and do a post-editing, surprise, we just upload directly from StreamYard, which means everything is live, unedited, unfiltered. You get what we give, and, you know, You get to talk shit when we mess up. So kind of a plus, but also that's why it's not spliced in there anymore. I guess I could put the video in, but I'll be honest, I don't want to.
Yeah, there is that. It's fair, but maybe we can. If there's enough demand for it, maybe we just bring that. But who knows if we're even going to need it from the
Bottom line, this is our last Champions League game. So.
Yeah, it is, yeah. We can maybe think about it for next season. No, we can't because we're still seventh. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about the game itself. I sensed a lot of confidence from our fan base going into this. Generally, I can understand why as well. Feyenoord 5th in the league, not having a very good season domestically at all. Already out of the Dutch Cup at the quarterfinal stage. Obviously finished in the playoff places in the Champions League, which isn't bad, but they conceded over 20 goals across their 8 games in the first bit of the competition. And they sacked their manager on the Monday, just after we'd recorded the main pod. So thank you.
While we were recording it, actually.
Pretty much was, yeah.
Yeah.
I would have seen it if it happened at a convenient time, but it was literally a case of we finished and then I saw the news. I was like, well, fuck.
Hey, tilt your mic a bit forward. It's going in and out.
Forward.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Just sound a little distant every now and then.
So, yeah, they sacked Brian Prisker and they replaced him with a guy called Boschart, who was in charge of their youth team. He had barely any time to work with the players, obviously, and I don't know. It can work both ways, can't it? Like sometimes it can be a disaster having an interim manager in charge of such a big game. And sometimes it can be like the players are free from the shackles of whatever the old manager was getting wrong and they can play with that bit more freedom and maybe even a bit more motivation. I think it would be fair to say with Feyenoord, we got the latter on Wednesday night. We struggled.
Yeah, there was, on top of everything you said, there was 2 other big factors that led us to believe we would, be pretty solid in this game was they had just lost their star striker, whom we purchased. And after that purchase, they had lost every single game leading up to this. So everyone was like, all right, they're dropping off. That was their goal guy, and he's gone now. But what we saw was the opposite. It was players who knew how to stop him, who knew what he didn't like to go up against as from a defensive point of view. They said that post-match is, this is what we did because we know Santi doesn't like this. Going up against his old club, going at his old stadium, essentially a week later, he was pretty non-existent in the game, as was everyone else. I'm not going to say Santi was the biggest flop of it. Everyone was kind of dull, and at the end of the day, it was a Maignan mistake that led to the goal. Very savable right at him, but it is what it is there. Yeah, so we went into this supremely confident. Obviously, I predicted a 3-0 thrashing, as was pointed out in our Substack Discord quite a few times.
I said we wouldn't win. In fairness, I picked a 2-2 draw. I thought there'd be more goals in it than what there were, but was wrong.
I definitely felt like we would have goals, and every game from deadline day up until this game, which I think was only 1 or 2. There were a lot of goals, so we're like, okay, yeah, like this is a team. They're clicking now, and the Fantastic Four is going to get their start. And
the flop 4 let us down.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I think sometimes there can almost be too much media attention on something, and sort of. I think it's because we'd seen bits from all of those players in the couple of games prior. For example, Santi Gimenez sets up João Felix on debut in the game against Roma. Brilliant tick for those two. Santi then scores against Empoli, the game before we play Feyenoord. Leao scored the opening goal in that game. Pulisic got 2 assists off the bench. So you've seen a scattering there of what they're all capable of across the previous 180 minutes. And then the presumption was, throw all 4 of them in together, it's going to work brilliantly, isn't it? It didn't. It didn't click. I'm not going to lie. I also think that something that we perhaps don't do enough as a fan base, because the focus has to be on what we did badly, right? Because we shouldn't, when you look at the 2 teams on paper, be losing a game like this. That's just the way it is. You're always going to sort of presume the best from your team and that you can perform. But I think in this case, you have to say fair play to Feyenoord. for defending as well as they did, for still offering a threat on the counter attack, for being as intense as what they were, especially in those first 45 minutes. We really, really struggled to get a foothold in the game, and for ultimately nullifying those 4 forward players to the extent where, like, this was always my concern with it, is that if that doesn't work, the Fab Four, we don't have another gear to go into. Any change that we make, we're gearing down, because those are the 4 best forwards out there on the field. What are you going to do? Throw Chukwueze on there and, hope that magically something unlocks? Yeah, exactly. And it didn't unlock. And then, I think sort of Feyenoord ran out of steam with about 20 minutes to go, and they decided they were going to defend the lead rather than go for that second goal that, let's be honest, if they'd got a second goal and they had the chances, they hit the post, they squandered a couple on the counter, then we're talking about a very different second leg, with a 2-goal lead. But yeah, even in that moment where Feyenoord decided they were going to batten down the hatches and defend what they had, we didn't really create a lot. It was a very uninspiring performance with that creative forward group out there. There should have been far more danger. I don't think that the midfield did particularly well. I think collectively the unit sort of failed us, but ultimately, the attention was always going to be on them 4 up front, and it didn't work. It just didn't work. And the error set the tone 3 minutes in as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was rough. We did. I'm gonna sound like that famous Pioli quote, but we were the better team before the goal in those first 3 minutes. We went in and we did have a chance. We had a 4-on-1 counter, and Reinders had, I believe it was Leao and Santi to his left and Pulisic to his right. Pulisic was not the right choice because that's where the defender was as well. But he took a shot and it went straight at Feyenoord's goalkeeper. He could have laid it off to Leao or Santi, and I'm not going to say they would have had a better shot or not went right at him, because I think at that distance, it was either just outside the box or just in the box. I mean, the keeper is going to be in the same position for all 3 of those angles, so it didn't really matter who shot. But ultimately, it went right at him, and we said, okay, it was quick. It started off. And you know what? I think Joao Felix was also there as well, because he never drops back. So he was definitely up front. But it was right at him. Then we said, all right, whatever. But we got one off, and then they immediately score from the counter of that, from that goal kick on. And it was odd. It was a great shot from Paixão. It was just, again, outside the box, but right at Maignan. It did bounce a little bit in front of him, but ultimately when you watch the replay from the angle right behind the net, Mike's low and he gets both hands on it, and somehow it still just bounces over. It's almost like a freak deflection, but still, based on that shot and the fact that Mike has conceded so many near post shots, and you've seen that type of shot and save from keepers of his level and keepers much worse be saved so often, ultimately that's a Mike mistake. You can't let that go in. You have both hands on it. You should be stopping it.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that during Verona as well, but I think Mike might actually have an issue, because a lot of catches I've noticed have become parries in the last couple games. And after one of them in the Verona game, I did see him actually shake his hand and the glove afterwards, but there were quite a few that went like right in his hand, and then he kind of pulls back as soon as it hits and goes over.
Yeah,
So
I've seen that.
he might have like a hurt wrist or hurt hand or something. I don't know. Maybe we're just not getting lucky. Maybe he's hurt. Maybe he's not, and he's just in bad form. But honestly, that was our only real chance. The Leao 1-on-1 on the break, was that Verona?
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm mixing both games.
No, that was the Feyenoord game. He got away, and I have to be honest,
he didn't shoot, right? He went down.
He did nothing really. He did nothing. The keeper comes out, and I guess he's the one who eventually kind of puts him under the pressure, whereby he ends up not making a decision, but also the defender tracking back makes a brilliant tackle to stab the ball out from under him. But the thing that, and you can look at a player like Leao, when he surges through, you want him to go through and bury it, and you back him to do it most of the time. But then when they're sort of showing the wide angle shot, he could have squared it to, the man running next to him. I believe it was João Felix who was absolutely wide open. But still, yeah, you want a player like Leao to be playing with the confidence where they go through on goal and they want to take that on. But just the fact that, he didn't really commit to anything, and there was no shot. You'd rather have a shot that's saved and anything can happen from there.
If you look at the stats, and again, everyone make what you will of XG, but the open play XG, so excluding corners and free kicks and set pieces, we were at 0.39, which
it's not good.
Sounds awful, but then you look at Feyenoord's and it was 0.35. So, I mean, this was really just a not good game. Total shots was 11 to 12. We had 6 on target, but 4 of them were directly at the goalkeeper, and the other 2 were, good saves. But they weren't. I don't think we ever had a big chance outside of the Leao one where he again did not shoot. Had he have shot, maybe that goes in. He had an opportunity, had time, but I don't know. For me, there wasn't enough from anyone, and Pulisic had a bad game as well. I can't think of a single moment that involved him in this game, and obviously he was the first subbed off in the 60th minute. I do want to give both Leao and Pulisic a little bit of grace because neither of them recovered from their injuries. When Conceição got hired, they were forced to play injured for the Super Cup, which we won, and they played their hearts out. I think Pulisic had the double assist in one of those games, or no, that was actually after, but they both scored and assisted in those 2 legs. Like, they critical components of the Super Cup. So they played their hearts out, continued to play. They're starting to get a little bit of rest, which we'll get to at Verona. Neither of them started. But we know that they're playing hurt right now. So I give them a little bit of slack for it, but also I think they could do better still.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things where you just want to chalk it off as a bad night. And I just think that there's been too many of them, no matter which head coach we've been under. It dates back to the Pioli era as well, towards the end of the Pioli era. We just way too often, you sort of at full time thinking, we're not at the level yet. We're nowhere near the level required. And I've said that throughout this Champions League campaign. It turns out that losing to Liverpool in that first game was no disgrace because they're on course to win the Premier League and potentially could even win the Champions League too, and domestic competitions. Then we lose to Bayer Leverkusen. I guess that can happen. I was still frustrated at the way it went. Only the Real Madrid game, effectively, was the one where you're like, oh yeah, right, okay, something's clicked here, and that was under the old head coach. Nothing else apart from that has shown me that we're ready for a run deep into this competition, and the Feyenoord game falls under that category. So I'm no longer surprised. I think it's just so worrying that we're so capable of slipping back into these bad old habits. And I did see a lot of people questioning the attitude and the desire of the team. I think that's become quite a lazy way of judging a performance and result that we didn't like. Because for me, it was like we had the quality out there to really control this game and make sure we didn't have to run that much. We should have dominated the possession in this game, especially given that they took an early lead and therefore, were more likely to defend what they had. And instead, we just really struggled to get a foothold in it at all. And we've got a lot of players who seem to freeze like rabbits in the headlights when the going gets tough. And I think in these high pace and high intensity games, the technical deficiencies of certain members of the squad are made apparent too. I don't think, like, the first touches were missing. There was so many aimless crosses put into the box. There would be runs made to stretch the defence, but whoever sent the ball would ping it 50 yards too far and it would go out for a goal kick. Like, just things like that where you're like, we don't have many ideas to begin with to break these guys down. But when we do have moments, the execution is just not there. And
I think a big part of it is fitness levels, right? We know we had injuries going into the new year, and the realization that we've played every 2 to 4 days since the start of the new year, and it will until the middle of March when the next international break comes up. That's a lot of games, not a lot of time for a coach to really develop a method and work with these players. And also, it makes it much more difficult for them to get to fitness because there's no time to recover. So that's a big issue. The other thing that I want to point back to is remember when Pioli first took over in 2019, he took over after Giampaolo's, horrible spell of 6 or 8 games around there. We didn't look any better under him up until that January when the world shut down, and then all of a sudden he had two uninterrupted months to get things together. Of course, Latin arrived as well, but then we went on that post lockdown run where we were unstoppable, and obviously we grew on that. Confidence went up, strategy was there. We won the Scudetto. Rest is history. There's a lot of foils to that because he left. You bring in a manager like Fonseca who has a totally different type of game. You tear apart the team. You put in players who were meant to help build a specific type of possession-based game, as everyone has said, and it wasn't working. So you had 4 or 5 months of this manager that players didn't like. He wasn't interacting with them. He was benching star players for new players. The anniversary game was mostly Primavera products. You didn't even see Theo Hernandez on it, one of our best players, regardless of how people may feel about him currently. All this damage being caused, and then the new guy comes in. It's going to take some time to undo that work, and we've seen it in the past. And the difference is this is a coach who, regardless of what the media is trying to lie about, I know factually that there are star players on this team who do really like Conceição and are improving under him and like the work that's being done. It's going to get better. The problem is, will he be willing to stay here after the summer because of the mess at the end of the season going to be? That I don't know. And if he leaves, we're going to have more trouble going into next season. But if he stays, I do think we're going to see a much improved Milan as the season progresses and as next season starts. That was winded. Sorry.
No, I think it's all very fair and very valid. I think after this game in particular, and you could kind of rope the Verona game into this a little bit as well, because again we were made to toil for a goal that came 75th minute against one of the worst defenses in Europe. It's just that we're struggling to see any style at all. The wins that we've had have, for the most part, been pretty narrow. I think the game under Conceição that you would probably say has been the most well-rounded performance was the Roma game in the cup, and that was partly with some new additions coming off the bench wanting to impress, and also partly because Roma came and decided that they just were happy to accept an open game too. I think there's an understandable apprehension about the lack of even slight improvement in the performance levels, and I'm talking partly tactically and partly, I guess, the mentality side of it does deserve a mention in the sense that Leao, Reinders, and I think it was Kyle Walker all came out after the game and said, for whatever reason, we weren't able to match Feyenoord's intensity, or we weren't able to match their aggression. I think Reinders said. That's worrying when you've got some of your key players coming out and saying, "Yeah, we didn't want it as much as them." But I don't know if that's a deflection tactic to be like, "No, they outplayed us," because you're not going to come out and say, "Yeah, we were outplayed by the better team" or anything, because you want to show that you can beat them next week. But yeah,
I'm going to counter that because I do think that's almost what they were admitting by saying we can't match their intensity or we didn't, is an admission of, yeah, they were better than us today. Not that we can't beat them in the future, but that's also a statement that you get from confident players. You didn't get that in the past. In the last 6 months under Fonseca, we got a lot of, we tried our best. It just wasn't enough today. Maybe
we're
next
learning
time.
and growing.
We're learning. We're trying.
Yeah.
This one was, I'm owning this. We're better than this. We know that. And they just got one on us today, but we're still in this. And I think that is a part of the mentality that the winner mentality that Conceição is bringing. Obviously, Rome wasn't built in a day. It certainly wasn't built in 2 months, as we're seeing. But we did beat Rome in one game, so there's that.
I was going to say that, which certainly fell in a day on one night.
But yeah, I think that actually is a positive sign for me. Mentality-wise, that's a positive sign because it's accountability, something that is severely lacking in modern football among star players. You don't see that. You see a lot of blame game going around, and this was just straight up like, yeah, we dropped the ball today, and recognizing that you didn't match their intensity means that intensity is what is needed, and that's how they're going to play. And I think it helps just the rewiring. It's being self like looking within or
Self-aware,
whatever,
self-critical.
self-reflective.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good trait to have in everyone, normal humans and athletes. You want that. So I'm okay with it. Obviously, if everyone's saying it, maybe it was a bit of a rehearsed thing. Maybe that's what Conceição said, is you're going to go out there and you're going to say you didn't match the intensity. It's your fault, because you're right. Three players basically said the exact same thing at the same time, which sounds rehearsed to me. But I'd rather that than just saying like, oh, we'll get them next time.
Yeah, and look, it's 90 minutes out of 180. The tie is far from over, so we ultimately do have to say it was just a bad night, because you've got to have some belief going into that second leg, which is happening tomorrow. We're recording this on the Monday. But just to wrap up the first leg, I would give my flop to Maignan. Unfortunately, another shot that, as you went over a bit ago, he should not be getting beaten by that at the near post. If I had to give him one alibi, it came through a crowd, and it seemed to bounce in the worst possible place that you would want it to for a goalkeeper, in addition to the fact that it was absolutely pissing it down, so maybe it was a bit skiddy anyway. But none of that, that's a 5% excuse at most. You get both hands to it, you have got to turn it away in some. If you turn it away and someone on their side fires in the rebound, you've done your bit. It's then on the defenders to do the remainder of the work. But yeah, I couldn't believe it when it went in. I could not believe it. Like, I'd only just really sat down to start processing the game, and then you see that Reinders miss, and how different the game might have been had that gone in. As you mentioned, it was a shame that the shot was straight at him, because I don't think on this season's form there's anybody you would rather that chance fall to on the edge of the box than Reinders. So I don't hold any blame on him for shooting. But yeah, then 60 seconds later, up at the other end, they've got a way less dangerous chance that ends up in the back of our net. And to be honest, in the first half, I was worried. I thought they'll get a second here, and then are we going to completely fall apart mentally? It's almost a bit of a relief that we're coming 1-0 down, which I didn't think I'd say, but the tie is still open. But yeah, Mike is my flop.
I think there's a lot of room for us to still win the reverse. I don't think I saw, like, yes, they were more intense than us, but if you look at the stats, it was a lot closer of a game, and neither team really deserved the goal. Like I said, it was a mistake. They hit the post, so maybe you could say they deserved one, which we didn't. So there's that. But it was a very close game on paper. As far as flop goes, you got four choices. You could give it to Pulisic, who, in my opinion, was invisible. I can't pinpoint anything he did in his hour. You could give it to Leao, because he had the one-on-one opportunity in on goal with the keeper and chose not to shoot, chose to go down, hope for a penalty, which he didn't get, and that's odd from him. You think he wants to shoot. Could give it to Santi for also ghosting against his former club in his Champions League debut for us. But I think Mike is the right call, because ultimately the other three ghosting, if Mike does his one job and grabs that ball as it touched both his hands, we're going into the second leg thinking, 0-0. It's basically a fresh one-off game at home. We got this. Now we need 2 goals to go through. I still think we can, and I think I'm going to say we will when I get to that, but ultimately it's a more difficult situation now, and I blame it on Mike for his mistake, so he gets my flop.
Yeah, in the period as well where he's about to renew his contract, which I guess we'll come on to, but not the ideal time for it. He's letting some bad ones this year. I think we've spoken about them before. The Diao one for Como, Sortea for Cagliari, the Weah one for Juve. People have sort of rightly pointed out went down the middle of the net. And there's been other ones where he's been beaten at his near post. So he's not, let's say he's not been as magic this season.
I do want to point out that the guy that Leao was going up against in most of his one-on-ones, their right back, was 19.
He was 18.
18.
And Givera Reed. I was going to mention this as like a segue into the second leg, but did you see what he said after the game?
No, what do you say?
He said about Leao, he got asked about facing Leao, and he said he's not that fast. He's very difficult to catch in the first few meters, but I expected that. I watched some of the footage before the game, so I knew what to expect. I also believe the atmosphere of De Kuip really helped me to distract him, so I'm grateful to
I
our
do
fans.
as well. They whistled him the
They're
entire
good.
time.
I said it'd be hard there, man. The atmosphere was phenomenal. Like it
It was
is a
great.
brilliant stadium because they're so close to you. And yeah, I like that though. I think, look, Rafa, take that personally. That's what I'd say.
Well, and you know
Not that
what?
fast.
He's right. To figure out Rafa, watch footage. You know that he's going to slowly sidestep with the ball right on the edge of the box, and then he's going to quickly cut to the outside. We
Yeah.
know this every time. He's never cut inside in his entire life. He doesn't know how to. He always makes the same move. So if you're fast enough and you see that coming, if your reaction time's quick enough, you're going to get him. So
I think Leao's one of those winger, because some of the wingers you need to be almost touch tight to because you can't give him the room to operate. Leao is one of those that if I was a fullback, I'd stand 5 yards off and just say, you can knock it 10 yards beyond me, but I'm going to make it hard for you to get on the
Yep.
end of that ball. And sometimes he does still, we've seen him torch a lot of defenders. And I say Vasquez isn't really a defender, but that Real Madrid game, he toyed with him a little bit there. But you've also seen some really bang average fullbacks, or in this case, an 18-year-old. I'm not saying he's bang average. He's probably a very bright talent, but yeah, you've seen him get limited very easily, and the double team helps. Don't get me wrong. I think he doesn't mention their Reed, but he was given help quite a lot by a defensive midfielder or by the centre back coming over. And that Hanko had a really good game, the one who was linked with Juve. So Feyenoord have some players. And I think it was a bit of an eye-opener for those fans who thought that we'd just steamroll them. That being said, top of the match. That wasn't even a dig at you. I saw some people. I had an argument with Rohit actually, and he was like, "We'll win easily." And I said, "I don't think there'll be anything easy at all about this game." And then throughout the game, I was going, "See, told you." Man of the match for me, Pavlovic, one of the few players who can hold his head up high after that. It was a Warriors performance. He was a bit shaky in the first half, not going to lie, but at times in the second half when, they were trying to counter a little bit, he was the only one holding it together. So I'd say Pavlovic.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that as well. I'd already switched to the preview for the next game, so I apologize.
Oh, yeah, shit. Sorry, my bad. All right, so how do you line up? Are you going Fab 4 again? Fab 4, fuck off. Until they do something, it's just the 4 for me.
Yeah. I don't like Fab 4. I like Fantastic Four better. Not a comic book guy, but
Fabrizio 4. Here we go. Cheers for watching, everyone.
Honestly, I will say I didn't know Joao Felix was one of those guys that pays Fab for propaganda.
Oh, is that right?
My God, is the amount of Joao Felix tweets I've seen from him since he signed for us. Leave me alone. Like, you're making me want to root against this kid who I need to be good. Yeah, anyways, I
wonder how much.
I think you go the same lineup, but throw in Tomori over Chow.
Yeah, obviously Tomori missed the game against Verona due to suspension, and you got Gabbia Chow putting in. So it's by the end of Fonseca's tenure, they were the go-to pairing, and I don't think anybody really wanted it to change because actually our defensive record under Fonseca got quite good by the end, and Gabbia Chow looked like a decent, almost complementary pairing, which I didn't think was. I think those two are the most similar in terms of mold, and yet sometimes it can just work. Having two good, solid physical centre backs next to each other. And then Tomori serving the suspension for the Verona game. They come in, keep a clean sheet. So I just wonder if he might sort of go with the hot hand again there. But that being said, Pavlovic played so well in the first leg, and
you keep him.
Maybe Tomori on Pak Zhao to help Walker out a little bit might be the temptation as well.
And with Chow getting the yellow card in the first leg, I don't know where that puts him in terms of a suspension, but I know it's only like 3 to get a suspension at this stage, so I'd rather not.
I believe that there were 3 players who were 1 yellow card away from being suspended in the second leg, and none of them got one. I think Theo was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know how that stands now. I could probably find it.
I think it's after the round of 16 that they get. erased, which means we just had 2 extra games to get those cards, and as opposed to
Yeah,
whoever will play
that's
next
totally
round.
fair.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally fair. I'm gonna see if Transfermarkt has it.
I'm going to say something while you look that up that might be a little
Yeah.
controversial, and obviously I know it's not going to happen this game because the player is injured, but I think I would like to see Loftus-Cheek get a run of like 4 or 5 starts under
Right.
Conceição out just to see how he does. I think he could play this style a bit better instead of forced into attacking mid. I know it's kind of impacting Reinders a bit negatively having Joao Felix do it, but I think making Loftus-Cheek as a box-to-box might be good for us. It forces him to pass more, something that he didn't do as an attacking mid, and it drove me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think there's still a player there worth looking into and seeing if we could get something out of it.
Yeah, I think I couldn't find that. It might pop up before the end of the episode, but I couldn't find the suspensions thing. I think that in theory, in principle, RLC works well with Conceição's style in terms of being more direct, moving the ball vertically quickly, making use of physicality. It's just what role that comes under, and I'd like to see him in the double pivot too. I say double pivot like it's not a double pivot in the conventional sense that you're playing with 2 6s either. So, maybe he could actually be the one to give Reinders a rest and you play somebody next to him. It has to be Fofana, unfortunately. I say unfortunately because he probably needs and deserves a rest. But yeah, when he's back, I think they're going to manage his minutes pretty carefully, aren't they? But I don't like a player that, when they come back from injury, you're already having to wrap in cotton wool because you're worried about the next time they get injured. Yes.
Yeah, this is crazy, by the way. So it's 3 yellow cards leads to a suspension, and they wipe out after the quarterfinals.
Jesus.
Yeah, so
Give
good
us a
chance
chance.
all 3 of them get suspended at some point for
Yeah.
a round of 16 match against either Inter or Arsenal, which is no bueno. We need both of them, and they will get suspended in that moment. So, or all 3 of
Yeah.
them, I guess.
Maybe you get it out of the way. Like maybe if we're winning, you get them out of the way in this, and then you miss them for the first leg of the next
Yeah.
round, and then I hope they're back with a clean slate. Yeah, that's not ideal. So I wouldn't. I'm saying that Musa comes into the team for this one. Now it's who you replace, like
Fofana.
compared to the first leg, because obviously play. Yeah, well, I don't think you play the 4. I don't think you can do it. As kind of mentioned, I think you sort of need one of them to be able to bring on to change the game if things aren't going the way that you want. And might it be Leao who misses out? That there's been an interesting trend recently whereby Leao has actually made most of his impact off the bench. He scored the first goal in the Empoli win. He came off the bench and got the assist for Gimenez against Verona on Saturday. So you almost say that like his best impact has actually come as a sub. Even go and look back to the Super Cup final when he'd recovered from injury then. But my gut feeling is that it's probably Joao Felix who's sacrificed, and he's probably going with Leao, Gimenez, and Pulisic as the 3, and then putting Musa in there for a bit of balance. And then if you still don't have that goal, maybe at half time, maybe 55, 60 minutes, you throw in Joao Felix on, you're going with 4 forwards, and you're hoping to disrupt whatever Feyenoord have going. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays with the 4 though.
Yeah, so Joao Felix is very clearly his favorite player. Since he's signed, he's started every single game, and I think the Verona game is the only one he didn't play a full 90, and he still got like 88 or 86 minutes. So it would make sense to bench him because he's probably the most tired of the bunch, but also it's not like he was playing ever at Chelsea, so maybe he can still play. If you were to replace one of those Fantastic 4, I would probably pick Santi just because how he performed against Feyenoord. And knowing that Tammy's not a bad striker. We saw it against Roma, so you put him in there. Maybe even the Leao, put in 2 players that the Feyenoord defense just simply doesn't know how they're going to play. when you have to think about what you're doing, it takes more energy, and then you could put Santi and Leao on later, like you said, off the bench, and now all of a sudden it causes more trouble. I still think he goes all out for this, knowing it's a must win. I think he's not going to change
Yeah.
anything but throwing in Tomori.
Yeah, I think the key to this game will be obviously who gets the first goal is massive, because if they go 2-0 up, then I think San Siro could turn a little bit and it'll become a difficult scenario from there. Because I still don't think that this team has anywhere close to the full trust of the supporters. You know, as much as they've backed the team, especially on the European nights, I think I think there's still a bit of anxiety almost that things could unravel pretty quickly if we don't start this game well. I would say that you want an early goal, and I think that is definitely the case when you've got a deficit to try and overhaul. I think that if we do get the first goal in this, not even depending when it is, what you want is for there to be time in the game where you can win it inside 90 minutes. You want to try avoid extra time if at all possible, and then the lottery of penalties. But long-winded way of saying that I think a first half goal, then we're on the right path. But without it, then it could become a very, very nervy evening. I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to win 2-0. Also, I did notice that Feyenoord they drew 0-0 with NAC or NEC Breda at the weekend. So, you know, they managed to stop them scoring. Maybe they were resting players or conserving energy levels for what is one of the biggest games in their history, no doubt, tomorrow night. But yeah, a clean sheet, and I think we do it.
Well, they have won the Champions League before, so I don't want to disrespect them and say this is the biggest game, but which they did beat us, by the way, en route that season. Yeah. I am going to stick to my guns, repeat my prediction, and say 3-0 victory. In fact, I'll throw out the exact same quote. I think we're going to smoke them. I do think we're going to be ready to go for this one. I think Sal will be pumped, fired up. And I think the players will also, knowing what's at stake, what's on the line here. And I think we're going to see a result. Yeah, I'm still sticking with it.
Yeah, respect. I respect the confidence. I know I've said we'll win, so it's not like I'm going against it this time either. I think Conceição will be even more emotional too, obviously with everything that's transpired after the Verona game. Found out about Pinto da Costa passing away after a battle with cancer, and he's flown off to Portugal. The funeral was today, or yesterday. I can't remember, but he flew. Yesterday, yes. He flew out there for the funeral and will be back. And Ypres said he was emotional too. So, you know, I have no doubt that he puts 100% of his heart and soul into everything every day anyway. But maybe that heart grew a little bit bigger, and, you know, he's going to put even more into this to make sure that there's a positive result. All right, should we move on, do Verona?
Yeah, we'll review this little...
One game. One goal to talk about.
Yeah, this game was frustrating. Going into it, Verona, obviously, worst defense in the league, conceded 53 goals this season. Only one of those was against us at the time, and now only 2 of the 54 goals are from us. So, look, a win's a win, and I will say it was one of the most beautiful goal setups I've seen in a long time this season. Might be my favorite goal of the season, to be honest with you, but recency bias. I think we should have done way better. Way better, because this is the worst team in the league. I know they're not dead bottom, but they're the worst team in the league. 0 goal threat from them, and we should be threatening far more. Now, our lineup was very heavily rested. In fact, let me pull it up here. Gabiachau, of course. Fofana, Reinders, normal. Musa and Sotil started. Sotil yoinked at halftime. Not the best game. Also, Walker was pulled off at halftime, but I do want to make it clear that he did not have a bad game. That was, in my opinion, strategic for rest for Feyenoord. You know, same reason Pulisic and Leao didn't play. Obviously, Santiago Gimenez and Joao Felix played from the start, and they played the majority of the games, but They just got there. They're at full fitness. They're not 35 years old, and they're not coming off of injuries like the others. So that's why they were rested, and Santi and Joao weren't. They were both good. Neither great. Obviously, yes, Santi had the goal, but it was Leao. People are giving it to Alex Gimenez because he had the great rainbow flick that got to Leao for the assist. But when you watch the playback, I don't remember who gave it to him. I think it was like Pulisic had a short pass to Reinders, which then went to Leao. Leao then ran through 4 defenders, crossed it to Gimenez, who passed it right back to Leao as he was continuing his run, who then gave it immediately back to Gimenez, who then rainbow flicked it over to Leao, who then mid-air volley flick to Santi, wide open header goal. Beautiful, fantastic. And yeah, so all the credit in the world to Leao for that goal, in my opinion. I will say, I thought those jerseys looked a lot better in the game than what I have said in the past after seeing the pictures.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'd almost
I
forgotten.
don't like
that
the
we
red
wore
one.
those
I don't like
shirts.
the goalkeeper one, but the black ones didn't look bad. In fact, my girlfriend was actually home for this game for once, and I said, "Hey, look at these ugly, shitty new jerseys we're gonna wear." And then we walked out, and she goes, "I don't dislike those. I think they look good." And I was like, "No, those are horrible. They're bad." And as the 90 minutes went on, I was like, "Those are kind of nice."
I still don't get the green. I still don't understand the green on
Yeah.
them. I think that kind of ruins it a little bit. It's not one of our colours. I think you could have even substituted that for a red gradient or even gold, because gold is probably one of the colours.
It's supposed to
with matching
symbolize
numbers.
the like African history flag. There's a specific name to it. I think it's Pan-African flag or something like that. I don't remember the name.
Pan-African is what they said, yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was Dreamland and 1963 on there because it's a year of our first European Cup, but also when Martin Luther King gave his "I Have a Dream" speech. So there was meaning behind the design. Yeah, there was meaning behind the design. Like there was significance behind all the components of what they did. I just think it came together to look a little bit busy and a little bit nothing to do with us. But then that being said, I mean the 4 shirts that we had last season were like, one was black and grey and one was like a creamy, like cappuccino-y colour. They don't really have much to do with us either. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, I suppose it's kind of like a blank canvas, and you can design what you want. I certainly didn't feel any. I still don't feel any urgency to go out and order either of them. And having spoken to someone at the club, he did tell me they look a lot better on. So to prepare for them to make a better impression when you actually see them at San Siro with the players wearing them. And I agree that was the case. They looked better. I really liked the jackets that they came out with too. The white ones with the red and black down the side. They were reminiscent for me of the ones in the 90s with Lotto and Adidas Originals and all that. They were really nice. I don't know if they're on sale or not, but definitely.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nice
I saw obviously that the shirt is on sale and the shorts. Would never buy a shirt and short combo because not playing a game. But I think the green looks a lot better with the shorts as well, because then it does the green on top fades into black, but no one sees it if you're just wearing the short with jeans or the shirt with jeans. It looks a little odd. But yeah, overall, I didn't hate the shirt as much. I guess back to the game.
Yeah,
we really did dominate, regardless of the fact that we only got the 1 goal. I think. In fact, I don't have to think. I have stats right here on this supercomputer that's handheld here.
Oh my god!
Our
£375 for the jacket. Sorry.
Yeah, that's crazy. Sorry, you're never getting that one. DHgate is your friend. Cut that out. Oh, we don't edit it. So,
the champions.
2.15 is our XG to their 0.3. 18 shots, 2 big chance missed, 3 shots on target. 3 shots on target out of 18 shots is abysmally bad. So I don't know where the hell they're getting that XG from, but that's what it says. I know Musa. Oh my god, that dude. Those shots were insanely bad. It was driving me crazy. And then he had one that was actually in a really good spot, and he sent a rocket just diagonal away from the goal. And he had options all around him too. I don't know what was going on. He had some go sky high, like he just was whiffing it, but he was eager to shoot. He did have one that almost curled top bins. It went just over, and I think that gave him the confidence to be like, "Oh, I'm going to do it a million times." But stop.
Please stop. Yeah.
Just stop. Like, I know we've been playing you as a
17
winger, but
points.
bro, you're not. Like, don't be doing that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah. That one that he missed just before half time, like it would have made it a completely different game, and it would have been a nice assist for Gimenez too, where he receives the ball kind of back to goal and lays it across rather than looking for the shot on his left foot. And he just sort of leans back as he takes the shot on. Look, he's not an attacking midfielder or a striker by trade or anything like that, so you can't necessarily expect perfect technique every time. But when you just need that, he's not scored for us, has he yet, Musa?
no. Yeah,
Obviously
that
the one
play you're talking about. Sorry to interrupt you.
yeah,
Probably shouldn't have been an assist from Santiago. I think he messed up receiving the pass from Reinder or Theo, whomever it was.
he sort of
He
did a
should
little
have had a
spin,
shot,
didn't he?
but yeah, he kind of like
Yeah.
overstepped early and was behind it. And then I thought it was a good pass as like a makeup backup plan B. That also should have went to Joao Felix, but again, he didn't expect it. It was a little behind him, so it got to Musa.
Mhm.
So like that whole thing was just like little mistakes, But yeah, all three of them should have shot that and scored, I think.
Yeah, and then you summed up the goal perfectly. Really, it took 75 minutes to come, and when it gets to that point, you're just thinking, or I was thinking, anyways, worst case scenario. This, and another weekend for us with opportunity. Obviously, Juventus beat Inter, so they didn't drop any points. But Lazio, Napoli have been played to a draw. Fiorentina losing to Como. In fact, we gained points on all of the teams above us, bar one, which was Juve. But yeah, I was just thinking in my mind, like, it's just so on brand for us this season to fuck up this opportunity and to draw 0-0 against a team that are the worst defense in the league by a mile. And I was almost just planning the inquest afterwards, like, what is going to be written about us after this? And I was thinking a little bit of the jinx of playing in the kit as well, because I'm fairly sure our record with new kit releases isn't very good. The 125th kit we drew 0-0 with Genoa, and I'm thinking, is it going to be the same again? A shiny new
and
kit,
we lost
we just do.
The cream fourth kit the year before. We did win with the black one, but we lost with the
Yeah,
other.
yeah, to Monza, I think.
It might have been Monza, yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
now going ahead with this, I mean, because of the way all the results went for us, the week of the 26th of February, and I put it in the chat. I don't remember. I'm pulling it up.
Oh yeah, I saw that this morning.
February 26th and March 2nd. So that like 4-day span there. We play Bologna and Lazio. And if we get 6 points from that in those 4 days, then that puts us right in fourth place. And obviously 3 of them are uncontested because it's a makeup match. And the other 3, of course, all the other teams can also win games and jump. Bar Lazio, obviously. But if we get those 6 points, all of a sudden we're top 4, and now it's huge. So that week is all of a sudden the most important week of the whole season, and I'm very nervous for that. Obviously, we'll get to that in like a week when we preview it, but yes, very. It does show that there has been growth on this side of the season. I saw something earlier today that said over the last 10 games what the table would look like, and ironically, we were still in 7th, but it was a 3-way tie, and we were 1 point off of like second place or something like that. So we had 19 points in the last 10. I think Napoli had the most, Inter had second, then Juventus or something like that, and then everyone else was tied. So it shows that there is a room for the table to shake up, not because we're doing so fantastic, but because everyone above us is doing so poorly right now as well. We're making up a lot of ground.
Yeah, and we did think, in fairness, that it would be hard for Lazio and Fiorentina to keep up the pace that they were playing at. And that's not like meant in any kind of disrespectful way. It's just that, with the squads that they have and having both of them having to balance European competitions, that it might be hard to maintain what was a ridiculous and a quite surprising pace from the beginning of the season. But credit to them, because they're there for a reason. And now, we'll see. There's big games coming. There's like a season-defining stretch coming up for us, I think. And we'll see what we're made of. You've got to hope that we stay majority healthy and we don't have any big derailing injuries. But things have been more positive on that front. You know, it's been a while since we had anyone key go down, and I don't want to have jinxed it there, but my God, we're owed some luck, if any team is. But yeah, this again, it's another win. This Verona one that doesn't. I don't think it tells us an awful lot. We're yet to really steamroll a side under Conceição, and there's certainly been some candidates in there where you think we should have won games more comfortably than what we have. I also see the flip side of it, which is that a clean sheet's important in terms of, you know, building that defensive resilience. And I think that's being solid and being hard to beat first and foremost is going to be something that he sort of bases the tactical identity of the team around, and then you sort of work from that platform. However, you know, ultimately we also want, having brought in these forwards in January and stuff, we want a team that's going to entertain, and we're just not there with it yet. In a similar way to the Feyenoord game, nothing really seemed to click. The final decision was missing in the final third. The composure seemed to go out of the window, and against a team that, yeah, as mentioned, one of the worst defenses in Europe. So there's some worries as well. But I guess the stage of the season that we're at and knowing what's to come points are the currency that matters, and we got 3 of them. Can't think of anything controversial really that happened. The one thing that sticks out in my mind is the Gimenez Duda thing inside the box, which was a really, really weird incident where I think they're both sort of going for the ball down the right side of the box, and then it goes out for a corner for us, and then Duda kind of has a swipe at the back of Gimenez's neck, and he definitely catches him.
Yeah.
And then Gimenez turns around and double-handed shoves him to the floor. And now, I'm not going to say that he was lucky to avoid a red card, because I think it is a yellow card all day. But a little bit, showing a little bit of an experience to lash out there in that particular moment. And also, I think that if he goes down and says, like, that a player's just had a swipe at me when I'm not even looking, then the referee's forced into a decision, and he maybe sends Duda off, who... I can't remember if he was on a yellow card at that point or if he then went on to get one, but he definitely ended up getting booked.
I mean, it was in the box, so it could have been if it's a sending off, it's likely. Well, I guess it was after the play, so it wouldn't be a penalty, would it?
No, I don't think so. I think it was the ball had gone out.
Yeah. But
it's like that stupid rule about how when players are lining up for a corner that hasn't been taken yet, another player can be sort of shoved over by a defender, but they can't give the penalty because the ball's not in play yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, but also
you should be, like you said, it's inexperience, and I think he's a hothead in general. He has so many yellow cards throughout his career and absolutely 0 goals or assists. So that frustrates me as someone we're deploying as a winger in 90% of the games. Even in this game when he came on as a right back, he played in the wing, hence why he was able to get the hockey assist and this moment in the box as well. But yeah, just if you get hit, don't fight back because you're some tough guy. Just go down, draw a card, get us a better position, win the fucking game. That's what matters. So, yeah, inexperienced, young, hothead drives me crazy, but we won.
Yeah. Yeah, we won. It's 3 points. I can never be too negative, but I think everybody's feeling a little bit the same after that one. It's like, come on, like we need to see a bit more. And if we had drawn that game, there'd have been a big fallout. So I think it's important to acknowledge sort of both sides to the victory, as important as it might be. Man of the match for me, I'm going to go Gimenez because a right place, right time thing. I think about how that move developed. And again, you explained it really well before. But just to have a striker in that position to head in, and also something underrated about it is how he held his run perfectly to make sure that he was behind the goal. Because the moment he heads it in, I'm thinking, for fuck's sake, he's gone too early. He's offside. And I tell you who would have been offside in that moment, or potentially not even in the penalty area at all, the currently injured Alvaro Morata. So yeah, I think it's nice to have a number 9 or number 7, I guess, with an instinct for goal and to be right place, right time to nod that in. And I think that it can only build confidence in the players around him too, because they know that if they provide a bit of quality service, he's going to be on hand to put it away. So I'll say he's the man of the match, not necessarily because of anything other than what was the most important moment of the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, he did get one of these for that goal, so props to him. And I do think, you're right. He's gotten 3 goal involvements now in 4 games. And in fact, he's only the 3rd player in AC Milan history to score in his opening 2 Serie A matches, with the others being Andrei Shevchenko and, of course, Christian Pulisic last season, or the season prior. I don't know if we're in year 2 or 3 anymore. But that's good company to be in. I am going to give it to Leao because I think he did a lot more for that goal than him. Plus, he came off the bench, and Santi didn't create a whole lot prior to that moment, and he played 82, 83 minutes, something like that. So I'm going Leao for my top.
Yeah, and wouldn't dispute that. Those were the two that stood out. Flop of the match. All right, I'm going to go Musa because I don't want to do it, but I want it to be on the record that I was tempted to pick Sotil for this because I kind of had high hopes for him. Like, right, he's got his first start since arriving. Quite a tough task, replacing Leao. He's got to kind of be a creative metronome on that left side, and he's got to be dynamic. He's got to take his man on. He's got to show all of the things that drew us to him and made us bring him in from Fiorentina. But unfortunately, he just didn't really get involved enough. You can see there wasn't much chemistry there with Theo, which is understandable. I think he had like one moment where he put a semi-decent ball into the box, but apart from that, there was absolutely no surprise that he came off when he did for me. All that to say, I'm actually picking Musa just because he was wasteful in the shooting opportunities that he got. And I don't even think it was. I think it was probably an important performance from him in terms of like we see the balance that he offers and the ground that he covers and things that are going to be important for us moving forward. It's just his game is so unpolished. Like he's got so many rough edges to him. That it can be a bit frustrating to watch at times. Like there's something there, and we're all willing him on to become this goal-scoring, ball-carrying, ball-winning midfielder, and yet he just seems to fall short in kind of everything that he does at the moment. So I'll say Musa.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. If for those of you who love to hold me accountable, or the people who didn't watch, go back and watch the podcast with myself and Isaac from a few weeks ago. And about Sotil, I had said, Sotil is not a guy that's going to get you a goal, but he is a body who will come on when the game's done, and he's not going to make a mistake that'll lead to a counter. Well, 10 minutes into this game, he did. Luckily, we didn't concede that, but it was very damn near. So, yeah, plus getting hooked at halftime. I know everything you just said, and it was his first start. Not exactly the best supported cast for him either. So it feels a little harsh, a little mean, because I don't think he even got any fanfare from the signing, given the amount of signings we made on the day and the caliber of them.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I'm going to pick Sotil. Sorry, bud.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's move on and quickly do the Torino preview. I say it every single time, but when there's a game between, there's the Feyenoord game before this, so we don't really know how that's going to go, how much workload the starters are going to have, if we're going to pick up any injuries or anything like that. So all we can really do is give a bit of insight on Torino. They are 11th in the table. They've won only 6 of their 25 games with 10 draws and 9 defeats. That puts them on 28 points. So Parma in the final relegation place are on 20. So they're not in relegation trouble at the moment. In fact, there's 6 teams between them and the bottom 3. They've scored 27 goals and let in 31. So pretty low scoring when you look at some of the teams around them. And they lost their most recent game against Bologna at the weekend. It was on Friday night, and it was a really, really good game. It was bad for us because it meant that Bologna got the 3 points, but it was the 90th minute winner for them.
It was an own goal as well.
It was, and Torino had been 2-1 up in that. And then Ndoye equalised with about 20 minutes to go, and then a Biraghi own goal for a 90th minute winner. So I guess they're showing that they can go toe-to-toe with teams that are higher than them in the table, albeit they're not massively higher than them. Well, but prior to that, they'd only lost 1 in 8 games. And that was, funnily enough, against Bologna as well. After that, they'd drawn with Udinese, Parma, Juve in the derby, Fiorentina, beat Cagliari, and then drew with Atalanta and Genoa before losing to Bologna again. So, drawing against Juve, Fiorentina, Atalanta, those are good results. So I'm a bit worried about this.
I think they're a better team than we're giving credit. We also drew against them in the season opener, and that was the game we were 2 goals down. Morata, ironically, in the 89th, and then Okafor in the 93rd to equalize, and neither of them are here for us anymore. Which, let me be clear, is a good thing. But I think the team's going to want to get this one back, obviously, especially knowing how the table is panning out. Like, every game is a final at this point, as cliche as it is. But it's not going to be an easy game because Torino sees themselves as a team that could sneak into the European places. Their goal is not to qualify for the Champions League, but I bet they think at this moment they can make it to the Conference or even Europa League. I think they're good enough for that. So they're certainly not going to just roll over and die here. It'll be a tough game. Obviously, we have Feyenoord in between, and that's the priority. So it'll be interesting to see how our players come out of that. If we need to go to penalties, even, what our exhaustion level is going to be. We don't know, but I certainly believe that the players will be up for it, knowing the reverse, knowing the new players that we have. And I think we can get a win, but it will not be easy. I'm going to say 2-1 victory, but I'm not confident in that.
Yeah, I think this is a really hard one to call. Also, I was just looking, and this will be our 200th ever game against them. We're on 199 at the moment. In all comps, this is 77 wins, 67 draws, and 55 defeats. So our win rate against them is only 38.7. We've got a much higher win rate against, for example, Lazio, Roma, Fiorentina, Napoli even. So, it's a team that we have historically struggled against. Obviously, when you think of Torino away, you instantly think of the 7-0 that we inflicted on them in the season that we finally qualified for the Champions League again. But we've historically found it pretty difficult there to win games. I don't have the time to compute this, but I can see we went quite a long distance without beating them at their place. Last season, we were beaten 3-1 by them in the penultimate game of the season. We'd beaten them 4-1 at home, though. And we lost 2-1 away against them in the 2022-23 season as well. We've recently suffered some wounds there at the Stadio Olimpico Grande Torino, and I don't think we win this either. I'm not going to lie. I think the game tomorrow is going to take a lot of energy out of us, and I think Torino are one of those teams that, strangely, they seem to be performing better against the teams above them at the moment, and I think that will stretch to us too. I think we'll draw this 1-1, and I was just looking at the table. I forgot that they'd gone fifth. They'd gone top of the league after 5 games, and then been on a bit of a slide. They had a horrible run of 6 defeats in 7 games, and they've kind of stabilised again now. But yeah, just looking at how they've done against the other teams, this is the only competition they have to worry about as well. They were knocked out of the Coppa Italia in September by Empoli, so they can throw everything into maybe a bit of a European push, as you said. But yeah, I'm going 1-1. I don't feel confident that we win this one, and I hope to be wrong. Because I think if we beat Feyenoord to go through, and then we beat Torino, and we hope for some more positive results from teams around us at the weekend, then it puts a bit more of a positive spin on the season as we head into a pretty decisive stretch of games. Got time for a couple of questions. Do you want to do the renewals? Should we?
Yeah, let's just mention them briefly. I mean, not much commentary on it, but Maignan till 29, Pulisic till 29, Reinders till 30.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. Maignan getting 5 mil net per season plus bonuses, which I always thought was the figure that it was going to come in and around. It's still a significant pay rise for him. I think he gets 2.8 at the moment. It's a good pay rise for him. He's 29. This is the prime contract of his career, you would say, especially for a goalkeeper where they have a bit of a longer prime or a bit of an older prime than outfield players. I think, as we kind of mentioned earlier, I just think the timing of this is a bit unfortunate in the sense that, the amount is going to be scrutinised and the decision to renew is going to be scrutinised because of the recent errors made. Whereas if this had even come in December, we'd have probably been like, brilliant. This is just organically great news. There's no downside to it. But I also think maybe it shows a bit of good faith on our side to be like, look, we know there's been interest from other clubs, and we know that this maybe isn't your best patch of form, but we're gonna back you. We're gonna stick with you, give you the pay rise that we think you deserve. You're the captain now, which he is. You know, he's got the armband since Conceição came in. So I'm overall giving a thumbs up on this. I think.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I don't have any complaints. I mean, I hope he does better than his near post concessions lately, but yeah, I think he's still a top 10 in the world keeper, probably higher. I don't think he's on the bottom end of that, but definitely I'm apprehensive to say top 5, maybe 6 or 7.
Yeah, I don't think he's in the top 5. I think there was a time when you could definitely make a case for it. Probably the season that we won the league title after he'd won it with Lille. I think that might have been the time when his stock was at its highest, shall we say. But there's no reason he can't get back up there. And if he fixes those near post things, then he's still a goalkeeper who can make some amazing saves to earn points rather than cost us them. The Reinders one looks like getting done too. Is that the one that's 2030? Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's the one that's happening until 2030. And he's getting a pay rise. I think it's surprisingly, around about 3 million net per season. I say it's surprisingly because you think of his importance to the team. I understand there's maybe a bit of a seniority thing to it, a bit of a longevity thing to it, in the sense that he came in the 2023 summer window. But yeah, 3 mil feels like a really, really good deal from our side. Even if it were like 3.5, I think it'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I think he sold himself short. I think he could get more. And the fact that it's the longest renewal at the cheapest price is obviously good for the club. Yeah, maybe we could do an agent that negotiates a little better.
Yeah, I'm going to say them. I guess there might come a time, right, where 2030 is a long way away. It'll be 5 years away at the end of this current season. So I'm guessing there's going to come a time in that half decade where it will probably need to go up again. And this is maybe just something as like a quick recognition that we can get through of his efforts and the season that he's having. He's obviously on 11 goals and he's absolutely flying. And then it might go up again in a year or two, which would be totally understandable. Then you've got Pulisic. This one seems to have been quite straightforward. He's going from 4 mil net to 5 mil net and the extension until 2029. I mean, there's nothing much to say about this. He's been our most consistent performer since arriving, continues to be the creative heart of the team, the man for the big occasion. I guess maybe again a little bit of surprise that we've managed to get 5 mil or under, because he could have easily gone in and said, well, I'm as good as Leao, so give me 7 mil including bonuses. But he seems really happy. He seems to really quite I think he did that interview with Sports Illustrated where he spoke about Milan being the perfect step for his career at the point that it was. And I think we can all see that, and we're all going to say it with a slight Milan bias that, yeah, it was the perfect move for you. But I guess from the outside, there might be some people who are like, oh, he could make the jump again. There's been talk of Liverpool being interested and other teams. But I think he's almost acknowledging that what's hurt him in the past is making the big move too soon, as happened to Chelsea. And whereas now he's found himself in this environment where he can really showcase the best of his abilities, and us offering him that pay rise shows that we are recognising his importance to us. So I think it's just an all-round nice, warm handshake.
Yeah, I think this deal, all three of the deals, but specifically this one, have been on paper done for a while now, and it's kind of just been pushed out a little bit just to extend things a bit longer, at the current rate. But Pulisic also gets the vast majority of his income from his Puma sponsorship, which is obviously something in tandem with AC Milan being shirt sponsor and all that. So 5 mil is not really what he's taking home. He's taking home a lot more. So I think the club income, he's okay with taking less because of that. Obviously I can't speak for the guy, but that's my assumption, my hunch. So yeah, I think we're all happy with it. No one's upset, but I definitely would still be wary of a Liverpool coming in this summer, because I think that's a team that could tempt him, knowing that he was a childhood Liverpool supporter, and the relationship we had with Klopp, who obviously is no longer there, but could sway him to go there if they start talking and he says, hey, Jurgen, Liverpool wants me. What should I do? And obviously Jurgen's not going to say don't go. It's a horrible place. He loves it there too. So
Come to RB Leipzig,
yeah,
Christian.
exactly. I think there's a little room for that scare over the summer, but overall,
Yeah.
I think it'll be good.
Leads us nicely into a question here because the Theo renewal news is not very positive. Sounds like things have kind of stalled on that front. It's understandable. He's not having a brilliant season, but wants to be paid, on par with Leao in terms of the highest salary in the squad with or without bonuses. JT Physio asks the question, who would be your top 2 replacements for Theo Hernandez if sold? I like Anthony Robinson and De Kuyper, though dealing with Bruges again will be painful. I said it on the bonus pod. I had a little take about Theo and it being his last season with us. And I think it's heading that way, to be honest. I just don't see somebody who he doesn't seem to be in it anymore. I'm not a psychiatrist, so I'm not going to go through all the reasons for why he may feel a bit disenfranchised. I just think maybe you can reach a natural time in your lifespan with a club, and it will have been 6 years at the end of this season, which is a long time. And he might want to try a new adventure. Now, it's not going to be Bayern Munich because they've just renewed Alphonso Davies. So Real Madrid might be in the market for a left back now, given that they're not going to be getting Davies. Other than that, it's basically PSG or a move to the Premier League. Those are the only ones that stick out. Or Como, which he doesn't seem to be too interested in.
I don't think you're too far off with your prediction of where he goes. I think this summer is, again, a pivotal moment for his career. I think you're right. 6 years at one club is a long time. He never struck me as like one club man. Obviously, we got him from another club, so he wasn't in general, but I just don't see him as someone who says like I could be here the rest of my career. I think he wants to win more trophies than Milan is currently able to compete for, and you could only do that at a club like going back to Real Madrid, especially if we're trying to remove that buyback clause for Gimenez. They might say, by the way, what's the situation here? I think Liverpool is again another possible destination. I would say that's probably one of their weakest positions right now. I think PSG maybe, his brother, is his brother still there? Or is his brother at Bayern now? I don't remember.
His brother's at Bayern,
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah, so I mean there's options for him.
His brother is at PSG, of course.
Okay.
He is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I could see that happening as well. I think he would like to play with his brother at some point. Obviously they do for France, but club level as well. I wouldn't be shocked if he leaves. And as far as who I'd like for replacements, I think JT Physio has some good shouts here. Obviously biased towards Anthony Robinson, but I do think he's a fantastic player. He really has done well for Fulham. He's come into his own. He was the guy that we were linked with, had a medical with, and then canceled because of a medical condition. So it's not like we aren't interested in him. Obviously, it was different ownership, different management at the time, but those scouting ports don't get thrown away, and he's obviously improved. So I wouldn't be shocked if that was a move. Again, USA connection. It's something we look to do. So maybe. I don't know if he has a Euro passport as well, to be honest. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's a good question. I wouldn't know without Googling. Robinson makes sense. I think his name would be mentioned if Theo were to depart. I also think like potentially, and people aren't going to like this, I think internal replacement might be mentioned, i.e. we say to Gimenez, it's your job. You've got the starting spot on the left side now. But that I don't think that would unite the fan base in approval. Basically, I think you'd want someone to come in and replace Theo with the money spent. I think
he has
Milos Kerkez
a UK passport. I didn't know that.
Oh, right, good.
Yeah, his dad was born in Milton Keynes.
Wow, that's unfortunate. It's not a great place. I think Milos Kerkez is another name that might be mentioned. The problem with that is obviously he was with us and left us because of a lack of playing time. But I just wonder if things could come full circle on that front, and we say, the reason you wanted to join us the first time, well, now the spot's yours. Maybe he might look at it then. But I also think that he probably gets a move to one of the top Premier League sides. I don't think he has to leave the country. The one I'd be interested in as a bit of an outside shout would be Nuno Tavares, who's doing really well at Lazio on loan from Arsenal this season. Him being on loan there means that obviously there's absolutely no guarantees that he stays, but he's having a good season. He's got 8 assists in the league. He hasn't scored yet. He might need to add some goals to his game to be able to rival what Theo did. But yeah, 9 assists all competitions in 21 games, and he torched us in that game that he got both assists, I believe, in that game that we played. That was a 2-2 draw earlier in the season. So he'd be a name. And then like the De Kuiper level players, you have to do pretty intense scouting on. I'm sure there'll be some League players that Moncada's got his eye on. Okay, what have we got here? Nintendo Nino says, maybe an unpopular opinion, do you think we should start Tammy over Gimenez in the Feyenoord game because maybe the emotion is too much for Gimenez? That's something that was mentioned about his return to De Kuip. Like, might he be too highly strung for a game like that?
I think, and maybe it was Nino who said this in the comments of the last preview, but I think someone in the comments did say we should start Tammy. He's in hot form, and they know Santi. It might be too much for him. And I disagreed with it when I read that. Obviously, I watched the game, and then this time in the preview, I said maybe start Tammy. So yeah, I think there's a very good possibility that is the right move. I don't know if it's a move that'll happen. I think he'll still start, but definitely I understand why you would start him. He was locked out by people who know him well. So
yeah, it's a good question, and to be honest, I don't know is the answer as to whether like a player can feel it a bit more emotionally. I can imagine that for Gimenez it was a little bit strange because it was a place he called home for 2.5 years. That was his stadium. The last European game that he played was in that stadium against Bayern Munich, the 3-0 where he scored twice. So like obviously he has so many happy memories there. He's returning to see his old teammates, and I can understand why all that can add up to perhaps feeling a little bit strange out there on the field, but also these are professional athletes. These are elite sports people. I think he should be able to shut that out. And really, as a striker, your job is to convert a chance if you get it. So I can't imagine that all that stuff's running through his head while he's actually playing the game. All that to say, I'd still back him and start him in the second leg. And I think that if we're still in need of a goal, then you can maybe bring on Tammy to play alongside him. So then we've got someone a bit taller and can challenge for the flick-ons and the knockdowns and that kind of thing. But I guess a player would have to tell you honestly how much they felt the emotional aspect of coming up against their old team. But I think, if anything, he seems like the kind of guy who would be more driven to score against them. And be like, look at me now with my brand new shiny club. Do you know what? We'll wrap it up there. Done a couple of questions. But yeah, I hope you're liking these longer form episodes. I swear we used to try and keep it under an hour no matter what. And now it's just out the window. When we've got 4 games, we're doing close to an hour and a half. But yeah, thank you everybody who listens all the way through the episode. Appreciate it, and give us your thoughts on everything that we've discussed in this particular episode. But in the meantime, I've been your host at Oli Fisher. Find me on Twitter at Oli Fisher. AJ, cheers for joining.
Yeah, Anthony _45 _. I hate that name, but I'm sticking to it. So that's it.
Yeah, nice. Have a fantastic rest of the week, everyone. Let's hope that we are through to the Champions League round of 16. Back later in the week with another bonus episode. But yeah, in the meantime, have a good one.